What seems to be an unending deluge of revelations, allegations and inquiries into the sexual abuse of children, what does it all say about how we see ourselves and how we look at our past? We often look back to the 1960s and 70s as an era of social liberation, but this scandal has cast the period in a very different light. Katie Razzle reports now on how the scandal has put the past on trial and the dangers, as David Cameron has warned today, of inquiries becoming a witch hunt.
As the darker side of childhood is lit up for all to see, we look on in horror and wonder, was Britain such a different place back then? The 60s and 70s were about liberation, the ushering in of a new permissive society as the young took centre stage. But beneath the surface, had anything really changed? When it came to attitudes to children, was this a very different world to ours?
For the paedophile, this must have been an amazing country to live in.
Rosie Boycott was a pioneering journalist in the early 70s, but she wasn't exposing stories of child abuse in her feminist magazine Spare Rib.
We didn't know about it, and I know that we would have started to try to write about it and find out about it. You think now in horror of all those voiceless kids, and it has to be a combination of the fear, of the fact that no one would listen to them, and the fact that no one would believe them, even though people must have known at points that kids were telling the truth.
So in a sense, society was complicit in it?
Yes, I think society was hugely complicit in it.
It may seem remarkable now, but the first time ITN, which makes this programme, featured a story about paedophilia was in 1983.
This is the sort of magazine which Mr. Oxley received regularly when he joined the Exchange. Others like this one, he says, are available at many newsagents.
It concerned the attempt by two men to close down a subscription service for abusers.
I really do not think it was on my radar screen at that time.
Professor Sir Al Ainsley Green, the first ever children's commissioner, was a children's doctor in the 70s, but he wasn't trained to look for sexual abuse.
Me, as a young children's doctor, I can say I don't really think that the issue of grooming crossed my consciousness. I may have been peculiar, but that was my belief at that time. I was aware of physical abuse, and I've talked about the struggle we had to how to diagnose it, how to get the evidence, how to work with social workers, etc. That was becoming much, much more part of the training of young doctors. But sexual abuse wasn't so explicit, it wasn't so recognised as much as it is now.
A lack of awareness of the issue in a society where the establishment still dominated all our institutions was a dangerous mix.
You really didn't challenge the local doctor, the local policeman, the local teacher. They had an impunity, both legally, but more importantly, they seemed to have a moral impunity, which you didn't push against. And now we are perfectly willing to accept that all these pillars of the establishment, in fact, are obviously often fatally flawed.
Right now, we can't move for investigations into the past. An inquiry into alleged cover-ups in the media by Lord Leveson, an investigation into police behaviour at Hillsborough, more than one inquiry into who turned a blind eye to Jimmy Savile, and into who knew what and who was involved in the systematic abuse of children at Bryn Eston.
We're into a new territory where I don't think people know what to believe anymore. There's a sense of if the cover-up when it comes to Hillsborough, the child abuse scandal, what else is being covered up at the top? To what degree is power so unaccountable? And we have these networks of people looking out for each other when abuses take place and helping to cover them up. How widespread is that, and what else is there still lurking? So I think there's a real crisis of legitimacy now for the establishment and a growing sense of distrust in the general public.
I have those names there. Those are the names on a piece of paper. You know.
But has the balance tipped too far? The Prime Minister's warning of a witch hunt after a TV presenter brandished a list he'd taken off the internet naming alleged abusers live on TV, perhaps the latest indication they have.
I am very nervous about this, looking back to the past. The complete collapse of trust in institutions that means that we have to look at every nook and cranny as though they're all corrupt. Every single institution is hiding paedophiles, child abuse everywhere. This is a climate of potential hysteria.
Hysteria or getting to the truth? watershed or witch hunt. Whatever it is, those involved in the cover-ups, the children who suffered abuse and were ignored, are being listened to and believed after all these years. And perhaps that's enough.